We all adored Benedict Bridgerton, didn't we? Charming, kind, a poet's soul. He seemed like the most easygoing and likable of all the brothers. And then this happens. And this.
Be my mistress.
Suddenly, our favorite brother transforms into, well, a rake, a hedonist, and a total procrastinator. So what is it? Character association? Or a deep-seated psychological crisis? Let's break it down together. The first and the most important key to Benedict's personality is the eternal youth archetype. Or in plain English, the Peter Pan syndrome. And let's be clear, this isn't just a fancy way of saying he's immature. This archetype usually has some incredible qualities. Such people are often curious, open-minded, and deeply empathetic. This is exactly why Benedict connects so easily with Elise. He's the only one who doesn't try to force her into the box, because he's suffocating in the same box himself. But there is a flip side to the coin. Eternal youths aren't exactly in a rush to grow up. They avoid responsibility, they love quick pleasures, right here, right now, and most importantly, they live in a world of illusions. That's why it's so easy for Benedict to fall for the lady in silver. She is beautiful, she is mysterious, but most of all, she doesn't demand anything from him. She doesn't want to meet his mother, she doesn't ask where is this relationship going, and she definitely doesn't leave a toothbrush in his bathroom. She is the perfect woman, because she doesn't exist. A fantasy will always be more beautiful than reality, because we design it specifically for ourselves. And this pattern, seeking out the unavailable, the safe, the commitment-free, followed him into every relationship he ever had. Let's look at the women Benedict uses psychological shield.
Is it truly to admire a woman? To look at her and feel inspiration? To delight in her beauty, so much so that all your defenses crumble, that you would willingly take on any pain, any burden for her.
You see, in the world of Bridgerton, marriage isn't just happily ever after. It's a legal contract. Obligations. It's losing that fragile freedom Benedict got so carefully. That's why his subconscious has developed the perfect defense mechanism. He only falls for women where it's guaranteed not to work out. Madame Delacroix, different social class, a relationship that lives in the shadows. Tessa, a free-spirited artist who will always choose her work over family. And Lady Tilly Arnold, a widow who explicitly says that she has no interest in marrying again. Psychologists call this an avoidant attachment style. Benedict is so terrified of becoming a boring married lord and losing his identity that he deliberately seeks out patterns with a built-in expiration date. But here is the irony. These women aren't just lovers to him. They're a refuge from reality. Through them, he tries to sneak into the world of art, the very world he's too scared to fully belong to. Imagine being genuinely talented, but every time you succeed, people dismiss it by saying, well, of course, he has the money and the connections. Benedict doesn't have to imagine. He was born a Bridgerton, and in Regency society, art for a man of his status is a charming hobby, like horse riding or fencing. It's a pastime, not an identity, so Benedict gets stuck. To the Bohemians, he is that rich kid playing at being an artist. To high society, he is that strange lord who messes about with paints. This is existential loneliness, when you are too much of an artist for the lords and too much of a lord for the artists. And right there, in this space, is where something begins to grow. Something that poisons the life of every creative person. Impostor Syndrome.
Let's your sketchbook in the fireplace.
You spying on me now?
It would actually have to be interesting for me to bother spying on you.
The drawings in that sketchbook were abominable. I cannot stand to look at them.
Impostor syndrome doesn't come from nowhere. Its roots are in childhood. In the aristocratic system, every child is a function. Anthony is the heir. Colin is a charming traveler. But Benedict, he is the second son, the spare, the backup plan in case the first one dies.
You are number 2, yes.
That is my name.
His value isn't in his talent. It's in the simple fact that he exists as Plan B. This creates a core belief that haunts Benedict his entire life. I don't belong here. I'm just taking up someone else's space. When he picks up a brush, that belief transforms into, I'm just pretending to be an artist. Let's look at how this syndrome shows up in real life. Remember the scene when Sophie sees his paintings? What does he say?
Things are unfinished, and most of them aren't even any good. I dabble, but I'm no artist.
This is a classic defense mechanism. If I call my own art trash first, no one can hurt me by calling it mediocre later. To Benedict, Henry Granville and his friends are the real ones. They live for art, they suffer for it, and they don't have a safety net. Benedict feels like a tourist in their world. When Benedict finds out Anthony paid for his spot at the academy, he gives up instantly. Why? Because it's easier to quit and say, I'm bored, than to keep trying and risk being told, you are just average.
And what does one feel in a Bridgerton?
Disappointment.
Psychologist Valerie Young breaks imposter syndrome into several types. Benedict is a classic natural genius. These people believe that if success doesn't come instantly and effortlessly, it means they have no talent. To them, having to work hard is a proof of failure. But here is the thing. Creativity isn't magic. It's discipline. And this is where his inner Peter Pan hits a wall. Because becoming an artist means growing up. It means moving from being full of potential to being real, with all the risks, with all the possible failures. Until Benedict realizes that his right to create doesn't depend on his family approval or the opinion of the Bohemians, he will always remain the spare, even in his own life. In TV shows, we usually gravitate towards two types of characters. Either the deeply complicated ones, with dark pasts and inner demons, or the clearly good ones. The bright, proper ones we're rooting for from the very beginning. But Benedict, he doesn't fit into those extremes. He's not as traumatized as Anthony, and he's not as perfect as Daphne. He's just human. A man who hides his anxiety behind a joke and is terrified to admit his biggest dream, simply being good enough.
You and I both know I am not the Bridgerton anyone should give their heart to. The unserious one, the rake, the free spirit.
Let's step away from the show for a second and be honest with ourselves. Have you ever quit something because you couldn't do it perfectly? Chosen dreams over action? Or maybe been in love with people you knew you could never have? If you answered yes, then Benedict Bridgerton is closer to you than he looks. He is you. He is me. It's every single one of us, still trying to figure ourselves out in a world which demands that we be ready and successful right now. But here is the thing. In the Bridgerton series, every story is about healing. And Benedict won't stay the eternal youth forever. Sooner or later, he'll stop chasing ghosts and start painting them. So what do you think? Will Benedict be able to defeat his inner Peter Pan in the new season? Or is his imposter syndrome here to stay?